Okay, so these are the topics that will be in today's presentation. First of all, a course overview, which will show how we plan to study the entire second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in 6 months' time. Next, a short review of the end of the first canto, when Maharaj Parikshit was cursed, which brings us to our present situation of the beginning of the second canto. I'll speak on the first lesson that we studied, which was posted Sunday night, texts 1 through 7. Then Samapriya will speak on the second lesson that was posted on Wednesday night, texts 8 through 14. And then we'll have open discussions, questions, and churn the topics of these two lessons. Okay, first of all, a course overview. And to do that, I'm going to enter into my course. Okay, once again, here's what happens when you first log in to our site and you see all the different courses that we've conducted over the years. That's so devotees can access their different course materials if they want to go back into the previous things. And also for those present participants in this course, it will always remain accessible to you, even 6 months or a year from now. If you want to go back in and review, then you come to this site, click on the particular course you want to access, and then view it. So let's go into second canto again. And here are all the different months that we'll cover. As I said, these aspects you can't see on your course because that's for administration, but I've already produced the course materials for all these different months, and that's how we'll go through it. And again, you have to enroll each month that you want to continue as part of the course. It's not just a log in once and sign up for the whole 6 months. Each month is its own individual course. So we'll go into January. And this is what everybody sees. Again, there are 8 lessons to each course. And what we've already covered was lesson 1 and lesson 2 that everybody can see. And you can see that tomorrow, Sunday, lesson 3 will be posted. On Wednesday, lesson 4. On Sunday, lesson 5. On Wednesday, lesson 6. And this way we gradually progress through the whole second canto, lesson by lesson, week by week, month by month, which is the way that Sukadeva Goswami presents his presentation to Maharaj Parikshit. This little icon here is a booklet. In order to access the different texts and purports, click the heading, go into the booklet, and note all the different headings. This is chapter 1, the first step in God realization, and the texts on this page are the invocation and Sukadeva Goswami appreciating Maharaj Parikshit's question. Page 2, he basically answers Maharaj Parikshit's question, which we covered in our forum topic, which was Ante Narayana Smriti. The basic answer to the question is that whatever you do, remember Krishna at the time of your death. Then there's a Prabhupada lecture and meditation form. So you can always see what's in the whole booklet here. Of course, if you access it on your phone, the outline is a little bit different. It's down at the bottom because of the thin screen that you'll be looking at. But basically, this is where the essential parts of a course are. And on each first page of every booklet, this is the podcast link. Clicking this opens a new window in your browser, which takes you to all the different lectures, which are not lectures, readings of the texts and purports that are in the course materials. Prabhupada's lectures are by themselves this year. Last year, they were included as one long aspect, but I noticed that a lot of people weren't really watching them or listening to them. So now they're separate. And as I pointed out previously, you can go all the way back to the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, and all the different readings are there throughout the whole first canto until we come up to what we've just posted thus far here. Every Sunday and every Wednesday, when we post the course materials, these will also appear on the podcast website. So that's a basic understanding of how we're going to progress through the whole thing. If you do this every Wednesday and every Sunday and join us on every Saturday, then we'll gradually progress at this pace so that at the end of June, we will have completed the entire second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Once again, our topics: course overview, how we'll study in 6 months, then a brief review of Maharaj Parikshit being cursed. We'll go to that now. Maharaj Parikshit was the grandson of Arjuna, and we all should know that he was in the womb of his mother Uttara, the wife of Abhimanyu, and Asvatthama, the son of Dronacharya, tried to kill him by throwing a Brahmastra weapon because he was the last remaining heir to the Pandava throne, to the Kuru house, and he wanted to finish that line out of, because of the war, the Battle of Kurukshetra. But he was saved by Lord Krishna, and gradually after the Pandavas retired, he became emperor of the world. So Maharaj Parikshit was reigning as emperor, and one day he was out on hunting, on tour in his kingdom, and uncharacteristically became overwhelmed with hunger and thirst, became tired, and he saw the hut of Samiki Rishi. So he thought that he'd get some water and rest for a moment. He entered the Rishi's hermitage, but the Rishi was in deep meditation, so deep that he didn't even notice Maharaj Parikshit had come to his abode and didn't pay any attention to him. And without being welcomed, Maharaj Parikshit became overwhelmed. He became angry and disturbed by this behavior of the Rishi. And with his bow, he picked up a dead snake and wrapped it around the neck of the meditating Rishi here. Hearing from his playmates that this had taken place, his son, Shringi, cursed him to die in 7 days. So the emperor of the world, imagine the wealth, it's like a quintessential example of what someone has to consider at the time of their death. Everything. Their friends, their relatives, their money, his army, his wealth, the palace, his power, everything was going to be taken away by death, which indeed happened. You can see that Shringi had cursed him to die by the death of a bite of a snake bird. And you see here, the snake bird is biting Maharaj Parikshit. So, in order to deal with the situation, his main question was, how should I prepare for death? So, here is a brief review from the first canto, chapter 18. Vaishnavi, do we have somebody who can read this for us?
Yes, Ekadashi, do you want to read this?
Make sure they're unmuted.
Yes, I can't see the full screen though. Maharaj Parikshit was to become the medium for the revelation of Srimad Bhagavatam by Lord Krishna, as his grandfather Arjuna was the medium for the Bhagavad Gita. Had Arjuna not been taken up with an illusion of family affection by the will of the Lord, the Bhagavad Gita would not have been spoken by the Lord himself for the good of all concerned. Similarly, had Maharaj Parikshit not been fatigued, hungry, and thirsty at this time, Srimad Bhagavatam would not have been spoken by Srila Shukadev Goswami, the prime authority of Srimad Bhagavatam. I can't see the rest.
Okay, so this is a prelude to the circumstances under which Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken for the benefit of all concerned. Thank you. And what we're doing now is starting to zero in on where we are in the Bhagavatam. I wanted to spend a few minutes explaining how we're going to do the whole course, but now we're starting to zero in on our topics here. When Maharaj Parikshit was cursed, he gave up everything and went to the banks of the Ganges. Well, while he was sitting there, having given up everything, he turned over the kingdom to his son, Janamejaya, gave up everything. Imagine this person's determination and awareness of life. He gave up everything as emperor of the world and just walked out of the palace, made sure everything was taken care of, went to sit down on the bank of the Ganges or the Yamuna. Because he had done so, sages and saints and even demigods from other planets came to this place and all had gathered, knowing that something unique was about to happen. And at that time, Sukadev Goswami, after all those different sages had gathered, Sukadev Goswami appeared on the scene. And Maharaj Parikshit asked him these questions. Samapriya told me Vinod Vani wants to read. Vinod, can you read these?
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam 1, 1937 through 40. You are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons, and especially for one who is about to die. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. O powerful Brahmin, it is said that you hardly stay in the houses of men long enough to milk a cow. Sri Suta Goswami said, the king thus spoke and questioned the sage using sweet language. Then the great and powerful personality, the son of Vyasadeva, who knew the principles of religion, began his reply.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're at text 1 or invocation, lesson 1 of the Srimad Bhagavatam second canto. In the invocation, Srila Prabhupada explains, there are 10 chapters in the second canto. And in these 10 chapters, the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam and the different symptoms of this purpose are narrated. Now I have those arrows there because in Srila Prabhupada's purport, he explains what that purpose is. Everyone is anxious to achieve the highest perfection of his particular activity. And it is indicated herein that such perfection is Narayana Smriti, for which everyone must endeavor his best. In other words, life should be so molded or molded in such a manner that everyone is able to progressively remember the personality of Godhead in every step of life. So my realization of this was that the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is to bring the reader to progressively remember the personality of Godhead. And as the book progresses, the different symptoms of this purpose are narrated. But the essential purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is to help the reader progressively remember the personality of Godhead at every step of life. And as I've been reading it with this understanding in mind, it's ringing true for me. Now, the way that Sukadev Goswami is going to present this to his disciple is through these 10 chapters in the second canto, which is called the Cosmic Manifestation. There are 10 chapters, and you can see here a brief outline of how they are listed. Just like that one verse, Vedanti tat tat vavidas tattvam yad jnanam advayam, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavan iti sabdyate, describes that this non-dual substance is one, but yet it's perceived in different features. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, which are progressively more and more deep and fulfilling. So in this same way, these 10 chapters will take the reader progressively through higher and higher realizations of the Supreme. In the first chapter, he starts with the universal form. Chapter 2, Supersoul. So this is almost like Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan with Bhakti, the change in heart. Then further detailed descriptions of the actual Supreme Personality of Godhead, how he comes to earth in chapter 7 under scheduled incarnations, how he comes not just to earth, but into the material world as incarnations with specific functions to help the conditioned souls. After that presentation, King Parikshit asks some questions. And at this point, Sukadeva Goswami will refer, in order to answer the questions by Parikshit, he will refer to the conversation between Lord Brahma and Lord Krishna at the beginning of creation, answers citing the Lord's version. And within this chapter is the Chatu Shloki, the 4 essential root verses of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. And indeed, from our Brahma Sampradaya, the very root of the Sampradaya and its philosophical concepts will be described. And then finally, how the Srimad Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions, because it fluffs out those essential statements by the Lord. As Prabhupada said previously, these symptoms of the purpose will be narrated. So this is what we'll study during the next 6 months, these 10 chapters. So we've come from a review, an overview of our course for the 6 months, down to a review of the end of the first canto, to the introduction to the whole 10 chapters, and now we'll enter into chapter 1, the first step in God realization. The first chapter describes the glories of chanting, and it hints at the process by which the neophyte devotees may perform meditation on the universal form of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada explained that in the invocation. Somebody else want to read this, please? Vaishnavi, can you designate?
If someone wants to read, can you please hit the raise hand button? That way I know. Right now I see, okay, Rama Subramanya, please go ahead.
Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, "My dear king, your question is glorious because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and it is approved by all transcendentalists. Purport: even the very question is so nice that it is the best subject matter for hearing. Simply by such questioning and hearing, one can achieve the highest perfectional stage of life. Because Lord Krishna is the original Supreme Person, any question about him is original and perfect. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that the highest perfection of life is to achieve the transcendental loving service of Krishna. Because questions and answers about Krishna elevate one to that transcendental position. The questions of Maharaj Parikshit about Krishna philosophy are greatly glorified."
Thank you, Prabhu. In the very beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, Suta Goswami explained to the sages at Namashranya, Srinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. Simply by hearing and chanting about Krishna is pious, Punya Shravana Kirtana. And Hriyadantasto Hriyabadrani, Abhadra means inauspicious things. Hridi means the heart. So all inauspicious things in the heart are cleansed by the auspicious glorification or hearing and chanting process. So Sukadeva Goswami is so enthused. Here he's come, the emperor of the world has given up everything. And he's wondering, what should I do? He's obviously disturbed. He's going to die in 7 days. But Sukadeva is going, no, your question is wonderful. Simply by asking this question, you've gone to the essence of life. So he's very enthused and he's encouraged to answer. Now, there are some people that won't be interested in these topics. Somebody else, please read these verses.
Sham Govinda Prabhu, please go ahead.
Those not interested in these topics, those persons, SB212, those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. 213. The lifetime of such an envious householder is passed at night either in sleeping or in sex indulgence, and in the daytime either in making money or maintaining family members. 4. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction.
Thank you, Prabhu. So, Sukadeva Goswami actually starts off, this is verse 2. He's describing the people of the masses, at least in our modern day. The masses are totally absorbed in elections and diseases and cures and topics of everything but Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we have devotees in every country all over the world trying to enthuse them, trying to bring them into this realm of asking essential questions. But he's describing that many people are not. Then he describes those who are interested in these topics. And can someone else please read these verses?
Preetam, can you go?
Sorry. Text 215. O descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. 216. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. 217. O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulative principles and restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord.
So thank you, Pritam. The natural condition of the soul is to be attracted to these topics. The topmost transcendentalists are attracted to these topics. So we see that there are those who aren't interested and those who are interested. And this is basically how Maharaj Bricket, this is text 7. So this is the first 7 verses explaining to his disciple who's not interested, who is interested, and then he'll go into explaining a little bit about himself.
Lokahitam, my dear king, this prashna, this question is not only good for you, but it is good for the whole world. Lokahitam, Lokahitam. So the Krishna consciousness movement is like that. It is not a whim that I went to the Western countries because I love Krishna, so I wanted to preach it. No, Lokahitam. As soon as Krishna consciousness movement was started in the Western countries, immediately they took it because it is Lokahitam. It is actually beneficial. All these young boys and girls from America and Europe, why they are seriously taken? I have not bribed them, neither I had many money to pay them, but they have taken because it is Lokahitam. Because it is Lokahitam. And what is the next word? Atmavid Sammata. Atmavid means self-realized souls. Tattvavid or Atmavid Vadanti tat tattvavidas satyam jad jnanam abhyam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabdati. Atmavid, self-realized person, transcendentalist, they are not interested with these material affairs.
So that's how Srila Prabhupada ends, or how we're ending this section of the first section, the first lesson. So this was texts 1 through 7 with the overview of the whole course. And now Samapriya will share her realizations of lesson 2, texts 8 through 14.
First of all, it's very nice to see everyone. This is the first time we've done a Zoom, and we are dinosaurs, so please forgive all the different glitches, as my husband called them. I'm also not so technically evolved, so I'm doing a very old school kind of presentation. We'll just talk about the essential points in Prabhupada's purports. When we read, we can read very scrutinizingly. Actually, Prabhupada suggested, and Bhaktisiddhanta said, that we must read scrutinizingly this Bhagavatam. There's nothing irrelevant, and there's nothing irrelevant in Srila Prabhupada's purports. In fact, one verse, we know, we've heard this before, can be studied for 3 months. So everything that we discuss in Prabhupada's purports is very valuable. And if anybody would like to read the verses or and let Vaishnavi know, I think Akadasi and I don't see this other devotee's name here. There are several hands up. If you just want to read the verses, and I'm just going to comment on the purports. So we'll start with Srimad Bhagavatam 2:118. First, I pay my obeisances. Prabhupada Jnanatirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Unmulitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
So you want Ekadashi to read?
Yeah, just read the first verse.
Ekadashi?
I don't know if you see it.
I have the book.
Yeah,
I
we
just
don't,
read
I
the
mean,
book.
we don't see. Do you want to share the screen?
Okay, I tell you what. If you have the book and you can read the verse, that would be very nice. So why don't we do that?
Oh, Vaishnavi?
Yeah.
When we've done Zooms before, I've seen that you actually put up a screen where you can show what's being read. Don't want her to do that, Sama?
No, just read the verse. Just
Okay, fine, sorry.
Okay.
8. At the end of the Dwapara Yuga, I studied this great supplement of Vedic literature named Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal to all the Vedas from my father, Srila Dvaipayana Vyasadeva.
So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about how the Srimad Bhagavatam is attractive to everyone, and it must be heard from a self-realized soul. And he also mentions that it is Brahma Samitam, which means the sound incarnation of Krishna. This Bhagavatam, so Sukadeva Goswami gives himself as an example of someone who will hear the Bhagavatam. Because he is complete, he doesn't have to, he's not motivated to do anything to satisfy himself because he's complete and whole within himself. But still he's attracted. Srila Prabhupada says, this statement, which means the verse, made by Sukadeva Goswami, that the topmost transcendentalist, who is beyond the jurisdiction of regulations and restrictions, mainly takes the task of hearing about and glorifying the personality of Godhead, is verified by his personal example. So Sukadeva Goswami is a swan-like person. And that's the kind of person who will be inspired to hear the Bhagavatam. Also, another point that Prabhupada is making in the purport, disciplic succession. This is a quote, Srimad Bhagavatam, or for that matter, any other specific literature, cannot be studied at home by one's own intellectual capacity. Medical books of anatomy or physiology are available in the market, but no one can become a qualified medical practitioner simply by reading such books at home. So examples can be given, even if someone has a great talent like Ravi Shankar or Yo-Yo Ma, great prodigies, child prodigies. Why do they have to hear from or learn from a master? Because the talent has to be honed. This is how we learn. Prabhupada says in another paragraph here in the same purport, one has to be admitted to the medical college and study the books under the guidance of learned professors. Similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam, the postgraduate study of the science of Godhead, can only be learned by studying at the feet of a self-realized soul like Sukadeva Goswami. This is the system to attain knowledge, both materially and spiritually, to hear from someone who has the knowledge. So although Sukadeva Goswami was a liberated soul from the very day of his birth, he still had to take lessons of Srimad Bhagavatam from his great father Vyasadeva, who compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam under the instruction of another great soul, Sri Narada Muni. So we're going to see throughout these verses and throughout the Bhagavatam how hearing from a great soul is essential, disciplic succession is essential, and there is a way that one will hear. There is a way that one will hear, and that we're going to cover in the next verse. Another important point is this Brahma Samhitam. And when we read the Bhagavatam, which is directly an incarnation of Krishna, the sound incarnation of Krishna, and the Bhagavad Gita, what to speak of his holy name, these are sound incarnations. That means when we are hearing the Bhagavatam or chanting, we are directly associating with Krishna. And actually, that's what we all want. We want to associate with Krishna because that's the natural condition of our souls. Now, the next verse, 219, would someone like to read that one?
Vinodvani, would you like to read that?
Okay, you just want me to read the translation and the purport? Is that right?
You can read the translation. Well, just read the translation. I kind of am not so set up, but next week I will try to be more set up. I kind of am improvising about the technical aspects. So just read that and I'll just comment on the...
Okay.
Just read.
O saintly king, I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence, and yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses.
You can read that paragraph that says, a person like Sukadeva Goswami cannot be attracted. Start there. It's in the purport. Oh, can you find it?
Oh, it's at the end. A person like Sukadeva Goswami cannot be attracted by any mundane activities, but when he is convinced by a superior method, he is certainly attracted by the transcendental activities of the Lord. The Lord is transcendental, as are his activities. He is neither inactive nor impersonal.
So, one might say, oh, Sukadeva Goswami, I'm no Sukadeva Goswami. How can I understand, or how do I become attracted to hear such a treatise as the Bhagavatam? But in our eternal constitutional position, where we are not being influenced by the modes of nature, we are attracted by the Bhagavatam. We are attracted by the pastimes of the Lord, by the Lord's holy name. This is the natural constitution of the soul. So even though we might not be attracted now, just by hearing purifies us so that we will be attracted. Next verse, would someone like to read?
Tisha?
Tisha.
That very Srimad Bhagavatam I shall recite before you because you are the most sincere devotee of Lord Krishna, one who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation.
So we see here this last sentence. One who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith. This is how to hear the Bhagavatam. Also, we have to remember that Sukadeva Goswami is speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, who is about to die. So he is telling him, he is giving him instructions, what one does if he wants to remember Narayan at the time of death. So this is the first of the instructions here, is to hear with faith. Also in the purport, Srila Prabhupada refers to disciplic succession. Again, Srimad Bhagavatam is recognized Vedic wisdom, and the system of receiving Vedic knowledge is called Avaroha Panta, or the process of receiving transcendental knowledge through a bona fide disciplic succession. Also, Srila Prabhupada says the bona fide spiritual master reasonably explains everything to the disciple on the authorities of Vedic wisdom. The disciple can receive such teachings not exactly intellectually, but by submissive inquiries and a service attitude. Srila Prabhupada used to speak of submissive oral reception. This is how to hear transcendental knowledge. It is not necessarily we have to be very intellectually sound. The most important thing in hearing transcendental knowledge is submission. And in order to have that submission, we have to have faith in the person who is speaking. And that's why we hear from disciplic succession, having done our research to hear from the qualified spiritual master in the qualified disciplic succession. Then, because, when we listen, we become very vulnerable, right? We become vulnerable. Submission, submissive oral reception. This is a very vulnerable state. So we want to make sure that we hear from the perfect person. So these verses are describing how essential these points are, to hear from the perfect person and the way to hear through submission. Unflinching faith in and this is also a quote from the purport, but so the point is to be sold out, completely sold out or receptive, to completely open to what the self-realized soul is saying. And if we hear like that, then our hearing is proper. And this is the mood of Parikshit Maharaj. This is the mood of Parikshit Maharaj. He's open completely to what's being said by Sukadeva Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, and we've heard this before, that Parikshit is the perfect hearer of Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sukadeva Goswami is the perfect speaker of Bhagavatam. And those are the two most essential aspects of devotional service, Shravanam Kirtanam. Now there's another point that is being made in this purport: hearing systematically. One who is actually interested in the Bhagavatam, therefore, must not play with it by reading a portion from here and a portion from there. One must follow in the footsteps of great kings like Maharaj Ambarish or Maharaj Parikshit, and hear it from a bona fide representative of Sukadeva Goswami. So there is a reason the Bhagavatam is presented in this order. So it's wonderful to read the Bhagavatam any time. Srila Prabhupada uses this example. It's like a bag of sugar. Wherever you poke a hole, it's sweet. But this progressive, consecutive reading of the Bhagavatam will help us to understand the deep purports of what is being spoken here. And the scrutinizingly studying and organizing the reading, organizing the way we're going to read from beginning to end. This is important in reading the Bhagavatam, and this has influenced us in presenting the Bhagavatam consecutively. So let's go on to the next verse, 2:111. Would someone else like to read the verse? Maybe.
Shama Govinda, can you read the second one?
Yes. O King, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord, after the ways of the great authorities, is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and also those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge.
So this is very similar to another verse that we will be studying in the 3rd chapter. Does anyone know what verse? Vinod, do you know what verse that is, Akadasi, or anyone else can guess that verse? It just popped out at me when I read this. Give a minute to think about it. I'll give you the first line. Akama sarvakama va. Anyone know? All right, because I can't see who's knowing or not knowing on this thing. All right, Vaishnavi, you have to be helping me.
Bhadra Prabhu knows. He is
Okay.
raising his.
Okay, can
Go ahead, Prabhu. You can unmute yourself and speak.
complicated, but can you hear it?
Bhadra Prabhu, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, let me try. Akam sarva kama moksha kamadadi tivrana bhakti yogena. I don't know the last line.
Yajeta parasam para. Very good. You know the translation?
Right.
You know the translation?
Not word to word, but
Okay, I'll give you the translation. Thank you, Bhakraji. A person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the supreme whole, the personality of Godhead. So this is a very this is another wonderful theme that will be repeating itself. Whatever desire we have, full desire, no desire, all desire, worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead will fulfill all desires. So one would question, we're speaking about the Bhagavatam. Why is Sukadeva Goswami bringing in this verse about chanting the holy name? So in contemplating this, we can understand that chanting nourishes reading and hearing the Bhagavatam, and hearing the Bhagavatam nourishes chanting the holy name. Because as the sound incarnation, Brahma Samhitam, is Bhagavatam, is Gita, it is also the holy name of the Lord. And Prabhupada says in the purport, here it is mentioned that one should constantly chant the holy name of the Lord after hearing it from authorities. This means, this is essential, this means that hearing from the authorities is the first essential. That's what Prabhupada says. So Shravanam, this is the first essential. That's why it's important to find, again, that's why it's important to, having done our research, find that perfect person to hear from. Hearing the holy name gradually promotes one to the stage of hearing about his form, his attributes, his pastimes, and so on, and thus the necessity of chanting his glories develop successively. So this nama, guna, rupa, lila, this name, qualities, form, and pastimes, these are the qualities of the Lord, and they are all equal. All of them are equal. So if we're hearing the Bhagavatam or about his pastimes, or if we are meditating on the form of the Lord, chanting the holy name, these are all, they nourish each other. They nourish each other. So, and they're all essential. But we see that the first two processes of devotional service are Shravanam, Kirtanam. Shravanam, hearing, Kirtanam, chanting. So in this chapter, and this is particular verse, any one of these verses you could spend 3 months discussing. This is a brief summary of the offenses in the purport. Prabhupada is giving a brief summary of the offenses of the holy name. And I'd like to repeat again that if you study these purports scrutinizingly, you will come up with gems. you will always come up with something profound that if you meditate on it, it will last you all day and it will keep you on the transcendental platform. Everything the Prabhupada says in these purports, in any case, they're all relevant. All of this is relevant knowledge. So we'll just talk really briefly about the offenses, just a couple of the offenses. The second offense, this is Prabhupada's words, the second offense is to see the holy name of the Lord in terms of worldly distinction. And this is really wonderful. Any nomenclature which is meant for the Supreme Lord is as holy as the others, because they are all meant for the Lord. Such holy names are as powerful as the Lord, and there is no bar for anyone in any part of creation to chant and glorify the Lord by the particular name of the Lord that is locally understood. This is broad-minded. Also, in the second Shikshastika, oh my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to the living being. Thus you have hundreds of millions of names. Actually, worship of God is non-sectarian. For all people in all countries, all over the universe. Wherever the name is present, if one chants that holy name that is accepted as the name of God, they will make benefit. Oh, okay, so that's my cue to go on quickly. Okay, so this is a very important verse about the holy name, and it also shows us that it nourishes, chanting nourishes hearing from the Bhagavatam, and hearing from the Bhagavatam nourishes our chanting. So the next verse, who would like to read the next verse? We only have a couple more.
Can Ramasubramanian go? Yeah, he will do it. What is the next verse?
The next verse is 2:112.
What is the value of a prolonged life which is wasted, inexperienced by years in this world? Better a moment of full consciousness, because that gives one a start in searching after his supreme interest.
Now, this is very wonderful. Sukadeva Goswami is encouraging the king. The king is about to die in 7 days. He needs encouragement. He needs to understand that the process that he is entering upon will become fruitful. He only has 7 days to live, and that's the next couple of verses here. He only has 7 days to live. What is he going to do in these days? So he's being encouraged in this verse. We should know in perfect consciousness that human life is bestowed upon the conditioned soul to achieve spiritual success. And the easiest possible procedure to attain the end is to chant the holy name of the Lord. These are in the purports. Let's go on with the next verse. This is a really good, juicy one.
Ekadashi.
The saintly king Katvanga, after being informed that the duration of his life would be only a moment more, at once freed himself from all material activities and took shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead.
So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says a fully responsible man should always be conscious of the prime duty of the present human form of life, prime duty. The activities to meet the immediate necessities of material life are not everything. And what do we do in this world? We spend so much time trying to meet the necessities of our material situation. Those are circumstantial events. They will change as life progresses. But the prime duty is to hear about the pastimes of the Lord and to become reestablished in our eternal relationship. So Maharaj Katvanga, he fought for the demigods, and he was given this benediction. He had 1 minute to live. He could have said, you know what, how about if I have another 100 years? No, he didn't ask for 100 years. He asked, he used that 1 minute. He went down to the lower planets where he had a few more minutes, because my husband and I were discussing how in the heavenly planets, 1 minute is probably 6 months or maybe even a year on the Earth planet. So he had some time to concentrate his mind and his consciousness on the prime duty. And he is the example that is being given by Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj to encourage him that everything else is irrelevant. The most relevant thing is to hear about the prime duty of life. And even within the 7 days that he has, he can achieve the goal of human life. So the last verse, Maharaj Parikshit, now your duration of life is limited to 7 more days. So during this time, you can perform all those rituals which are needed for the best purpose of your next life. So these verses describe how Sukadeva Goswami is encouraging the king to use his last 7 days to perfect his existence and to encourage him that it is actually possible for him to do that. Only 7 days. Prabhupada says only 1 minute. All we need is 1 minute to completely surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But of course, we are in a situation now where we don't know when we're going to die. Best we use every moment that we have to try to cultivate Krishna consciousness by hearing and chanting. Does anyone have any question or realization that they had in reading these verses? Vaishnavi.
Dr. Prabhu, are you saying you have a question?
I don't.
Please unmute yourself and speak, Dr. Prabhu.
Does
If you have a question,
You asking me?
yes. No, I thought you raised your hand. So anybody else have?
No, but I can ask question since I'm on the line. Can I ask question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so in the text 9, he says that the Maharaj Sukadeva Goswami is putting himself, and he says that I was certainly situated perfectly in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. So when he's saying that I was situated perfectly in transcendence, is that means he was in the stage of the impersonalism?
No. He was self-satisfied.
But he
It
was.
could mean, I guess it could mean that as well. But the point of I took it that the point of this verse is to show, and this was Prabhupada also discussing, how even one who is filled with self-realization, he is also attracted. He doesn't need to be attracted to anything because he's filled within himself. So he's attracted to the pastimes of the Lord. And why is that? Because it is the natural constitution to be attracted to the pastimes of the Lord. And Sukadeva Goswami is giving himself as an example. I didn't need to know about this to become, I'm already situated, and you're right, it could be in impersonal realization, but he's acknowledging that it's not that I have a need, I'm perfectly happy, but still I'm attracted. Still I'm attracted to hear about the pastimes of the Lord. Anyone else have a realization after reading these verses? Somebody must have some realization they'd like to share. Or how about Ian? Ian, do you have something to say? Now that I know how to read these names here. You have to unmute, Ian. Vaishnavi, unmute Ian.
You can unmute yourself.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Are you hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, I've been through the Srimad Bhagavatam twice already. So everything is coming to, but the important thing is that comment that Prabhu made a while ago about he didn't need to be hearing because he was have some amount of self-realization already. But as we are reminded that we have to keep hearing and chanting, because spiritual life is so like a razor's edge. That's my comment.
Oh, very nice.
Yes.
I'm reminded also of the whole explanation by Lord Chaitanya before Sanatana Goswami with the Atmarama verse.
Okay.
Explaining so many different types of transcendentalists. Atmaramas are transcendentalists. Atma Rama means
Rama.
they're finding satisfaction in the self. They're not materialists.
Yeah.
But Krishna is so attractive that no matter what level of transcendence a person is on, when they hear his pastimes, when they come in contact with a devotee, someone who knows about bhakti, then they're attracted. So he's saying, Sukadeva Goswami, that although I was situated in transcendence, I was still attracted to hear these pastimes. And of course, they were delineated by his great father, Vyasadeva.
Yeah.
So he's going from there.
I'd like to ask Faye, is she there? There she is. Do you have something to say about what you've read or anything that you've heard here? Can you share that with us?
Unmute yourself. Unmute.
That better?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
The promise that is written in verse 10, the last line, one who gives full attention and respect to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam achieves unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, the giver of salvation.
Wonderful.
Beautiful promise. Beautiful promise. Moving one. Very moving.
Yeah, good. That's good. You see here that Sukadeva Goswami is encouraging Parikshit Maharaj. He's encouraged. That's what we have to be encouraged in our spiritual life. That's what we get encouraged by reading scrutinizingly Srila Prabhupada's books. This is how we get encouraged. What do you think, Shruti? Do you have something to say? Thank you, Faye. Can you say something about that, Shruti Rupa?
Unmute.
Yeah.
Unmute yourself.
It's interesting that is it Faye?
Yes.
Yeah, Faye. It's interesting that she said that exact line, because when you were reading it, or when I was catching that stood out to me, because I was being distracted and this happened, that happened, and it really made me focus and realize the importance of being told by not paying attention, you're being disrespectful. So that really brought me back into the space. But then I also have to apologize, because I've been delinquent and I'm not up to speed to where we are. So as we were speaking, I thought, as soon as this is over, I've got to catch up and read everything to where we are now.
Okay. Okie dokie.
But I've so much enjoyed this today. I'm so enthused. I'm actually over the top thrilled. And you've done a wonderful job. And Dhruva Maharaj, I think you did it perfect. So no worries there.
I'm just going through the list here to see who's Karna. Would you like to say something, sweetie?
Yes, of course. I would just like to say that even though we can study the time of death academically, it's still a shock when it happens to you or someone you know well. My younger sister, 5 years younger than me, has it all together materially, like the top you could get materially, just got diagnosed with Parkinson's. So we've been on the phone every day for hours. And then, of course, I know when my day is coming. And even though we're studying like this now, I'm going to be shocked, and on it goes. So it's our desire to live eternally. So it's great that we're understanding now what we should do.
Good, thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Vinod, please enlighten us.
I did have a question because we see that Sukadeva Goswami was attracted, as he says. Of course, we know kind of the backstory. Sukadeva Goswami is not an ordinary person. And he did hear his father's disciples chanting the Bhagavatam, and he became attracted, and then he studied again from his father. But then we read in verse 4 that Sukadeva Goswami said persons who are devoid of Atma Tattva, they're not interested to hear, and they're preoccupied with many things in their lives. So we have these two extremes. We have the self-realized person who is naturally attracted, and we have the majority of us who are very much covered over. So how do we pull people up into an area where they become receptive to hearing Atma Tattva? That's all I have to say.
That is wonderful, and that's the preaching movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and what Srila Prabhupada gave in the chanting of the holy name, taking prasadam. There's preachers since time immemorial have been trying to figure out ways to get the conditioned soul in, with festivals, with so many different things. So chanting the holy name, hearing from the pure devotee. Does anyone else have any suggestions about how this preaching can be dynamic and encourage others to take this process up? Durya Leela, you're up. You're right there. Can you say
Give up prasadam.
And
Even
books.
transcendental art.
Rath Yatras.
Rath-yatra, of course. Let's go through everyone. How about Ramasu Brahmi?
Paintings like Krishna conscious paintings, like I was attracted.
Oh, sweet. Okay, anyone else have something? What?
Also by perfecting ourselves, and then people become attracted to us.
Yeah, because each one of us has a field of activities, and the more Krishna conscious and joyful we become, it's like contagious. It's contagious. So right, that's a very good point. Thank you.
Kirtan. Kirtan.
Kirtan. That's it. Okay.
Whoops.
Pritam, are you still with us, Pritam? No, he's not. I don't know. There's a lot of blank people. All right. Well, anyway, Nanda, are you there? Nanda, she's just there in a little way. Okay. Well, that's all I have to.
One other thing I wanted to say, if it's okay, Prabhu.
Sure.
About 13, I just appreciated so much how he says Katvanga Maharaj, he took shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead. And I was thinking how now that's like the buzz catchphrase is, stay safe, stay safe.
Oh,
and we do all, so much to protect ourselves from the coronavirus. But the best thing, we have to protect our bodies, of course, but the best thing is what we're doing now. And, the hearing and discussing Bhagavatam with the devotees, and that's taking shelter of the supreme safety, the personality of Godhead.
And Prabhupada, in this little purport, prime duty. The prime duty is repeated over and over again. The prime duty for humanity. This is why we're here in the human form of life. This is actually the purpose of the human form of life, is to take advantage of the prime duty. And Parikshit is being encouraged by Sukadev Goswami.
I like that part when you were studying that part, that actually he's got 7 days to live.
Yeah.
And he's not being discouraged and, oh, I'm sorry to hear about what happened to you. You were emperor of the world, now you're going to die. No, he's actually encouraging them. And he gives the example of Katvanga Maharaj, and he said, he did it, and you can also do it.
Yeah.
So the readers and the participants and those who take up this process should also be encouraged. Yes, you can go back to Godhead if you follow this process. Here it is.
Wow. Yeah. Pritam, did you want to say something, Prabhu?
Me?
Yeah, sure. I was wondering, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering that that we read or hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we try to apply those teachings in our practical life, day-to-day life, right? So we hear and then we try to perform service according to the instructions. But isn't it amazing that Parikshit Maharaj, he didn't have to do any of this. He just heard Srimad Bhagavatam from a pure devotee, and then he went back to Godhead.
Okay, now I like to say, Shravanam Kirtanam, these are the two most important services. Don't let's think for a moment that this is not service, because there is a way to hear through submissive oral reception, through concentrating, putting your mind fully on what you're reading. This is what it means to read scrutinizingly Prabhupada's books. And this is what we're trying to encourage as our service to Srila Prabhupada, that just by reading any one of his purports, you could find a solution to all the problems of life. This is transcendental knowledge. Don't think for a moment that Shravanam Kirtanam is a just. This is if we can perfect our Shravanam Kirtanam, we're home free. Because we're listening and watching everything else that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
This is and the world is real good. What to speak of Zoom? Everything we're doing transcendental knowledge on Zoom. Because everyone's zooming, and the world is nuts because of communication. It's detrimental, but it makes us think. Oh, maybe I should do that. So many different things are out there. We can't concentrate if we have too many things. Just like reading the Bhagavatam has to be done in a scrutinizing manner. Just that purport that we just read, Prabhupada was saying that we should read consecutively, hear consecutively. You know, there's a little bit of a science in this to help the mind become focused on what we're doing. Very essential. So then you see how. Then that means that you cast the other things out. So this service is vital. Don't pay so much attention to the outside things, the material activities. It's not everything.
I want to take the opportunity to of that consecutive concept to kind of close this session up with the understanding that as we progress through these 6 months of the 10 chapters in this second canto, that progression is what Sukadev Goswami is actually presenting. So I want to encourage everybody, thank everybody for participating. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating in this project. We look forward to your association further as we progress together through this process.
Someone else.
Okay. Can I say something here? That I
Certainly.
have 4 participants have raised their hand. I'm not sure if they have something to say. Ekadashi, Madhurya Leela, Tisha, and Deenanatha Chaitanya Das. So would you like,
Yes.
Deenanatha Chaitanya Das would like to say something.
Yes,
so
please.
Do
Okay.
you still have time to do it? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you very much for allowing to hear the nectar. As Mataji was telling about submissive oral reception, which Srila Prabhupada stresses, it's very, very essential when we submit ourselves and hear attentively, irrespective of who the speaker is, we get the nectar flowing and we get the mercy. I just wanted to share this.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Madhurya, we may as well go this way. Madhurya,
Yes, I just had a simple question about the very first verse, the use of the word symptoms. If you could clarify that, what does it really mean? Symptoms of the Bhagavatam, the
Purpose. The purpose.
The purpose, as I explained when I was speaking, my realization was that the purpose of the book is to bring the reader to becoming more conscious, absorbed in Krishna. To remember Krishna at the time of death is kind of like an umbrella concept. And the symptoms of that purpose are how it manifests throughout the book with hundreds and thousands of examples, so that the reader can understand no matter who's doing it, it's appropriate and personal to that person. I was thinking of the purpose, a good example, the purpose of a garden. What is the purpose of a garden? Why does it exist? Is it creates an atmosphere so that when seeds are sown, what's inside the seeds becomes excited, germinates, and starts to grow, and then manifests the very nature that's within each seed. And it doesn't matter what kind of a seed is in the garden. There's hundreds and thousands of different kinds of plants in big gardens or farms. So that atmosphere helps to germinate and excite and enthuse the potential within each seed to come out. So, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabo Noi, Shravanada Sudha Chite Karya Udoy. that the Krishna Prema is situated in the heart of every living entity. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. Sadhya Kabu Noi means that it doesn't come from someplace else. It's situated within the seed. Shravanat is Sudha Chitte, but hearing from Sudha Chit, hearing from a pure devotee, Sukadev Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, Viswanath Chakravarti Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this disciplic succession, the pure Acharya, hearing from that, Shravanata Sudha Chitte, Korya Odoy. Odoy means it awakens. So the symptoms of the purpose are manifested in so many examples throughout the book. That was my.
Can you give some examples? Like a couple examples of what those symptoms
Sure,
might be?
Narada Muni and Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva had written so much, he had so much knowledge that he'd compiled, and he was still feeling unsatisfied. So Narada told him, no, you have to write about this topic. That's where satisfaction lies. So that symptom is going to be manifest throughout the whole, that purpose, the glorification of the Supreme Person. No other activity, all the other activities of Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Upasana Kanda, he had already written about those. 108 Upanishads, 18 Puranas, Vedanta Sutra, Mahabharata, but somehow there was something lacking. So why is this cream of the Vedic knowledge considered in Srimad Bhagavatam? Because that essence was captured by Vyasadeva. That's one example.
There are so many examples. What's the one? Oh my, the sixth canto, the Yamadutas. Ajamil. And also Devahuti. There's so many examples. Queen Kunti. There's so many examples of devotees who are actually situated, Ambarish Maharaj, situated in transcendental love, who exhibit the symptoms of being totally detached from the world. These are the people we want to follow. Detach ourselves. Why? You know, it's amazing. I also feel like I hear Prabhupada talk about this transcendental knowledge. I become so strong, and I see he's saying, give up this nonsense, give up these attachments, give up this family life and profit or adoration, distinction, give it up. This was the pure devotee saying this. So it's encouraging. But I think my husband's now, okay. Anyone else have something to say before we end it up? Because I think that Tisha, do you want to say something, my darling?
Yes, what I wanted to say is I too have read the Srimad Bhagavatam twice over the last maybe 20 years. But what I realized in hearing from you today is that it's not about just reading. You really, what Prabhupada said, you have to have a teacher. You can't get a medical book and become a doctor. And so hearing that today made me realize, even though I've read through it twice and I might be puffed up about that, I still have not had the instruction and guidance to understand fully at all what it means and how to proceed. And the other thing I want to say is what has made me kind of turn that corner to realize I've always kind of been a lone wolf and never honestly and most humbly thought about really joining in with ISKCON is because of some of the things that happened, after Prabhupada left. But during COVID, I had bought a bunch of books by devotees. I bought Shyama Sundar's Chasing Rhinos with the Swami, The Bond of Love, hearing about Malati and reading your stories. All of the devotees who were with Prabhupada encouraged me to say, this is like amazing. You are all so amazing. And that is one of the way you can bring people to ISKCON and to understand this greatness, is that all of the original devotees of Prabhupada are amazing. And what you did was nothing short of
spectacular.
Yes. And
Well,
so for me,
that's wonderful. Thank you. That's what we're trying to do here, is study scrutinizingly Srila Prabhupada's words. And it's very enlivening. And I'm glad that you appreciate that, because we have been given a great benediction. So anyone can have a relationship. I also wrote a book. I was going to get up and show it to you, The Divine Love Trip. And in that, all through that book, because I didn't get to associate so much with Srila Prabhupada personally, because I was a Sankirtan devotee and distributed his books and was out on the field. But we can associate with Srila Prabhupada very intimately, reading his purports. This is directly hearing from the pure devotee.
Yeah.
So get ready for the juice. This is the real benediction of life. And because we have some forum here, we can discuss it with each other, and we can ask questions and speak our realizations and encourage each other, just like Pariksit Maharaj was encouraging Sukadeva Goswami was encouraging Pariksit. Because this is essential knowledge. This is why we're in the human form of life. So it's very exciting to all of us. I don't know. I'm going to get my book so I can show you all my little divine love trip.
I'm reminded of that statement in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam on the first page, even the title page. He lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. So this is what she's saying.
Hare Krishna. Okay, just want to, this is my book, The Divine Love Trip.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. And it's took me 13 years to write it, but it talks about how what you go through to change your life from material consciousness to spiritual consciousness, and the miracles that Prabhupada performed, because we were like Ramachandra's monkeys, you know. But he performed a miracle by giving us all the truth and helping us to understand the goal of life. But I think I'm going to turn it over to my husband, because it looks like we've been doing this for an hour and a half now, so we probably could go on.
Just wondering if
eternally.
there's any other comments that people want to make.
Anyone
Vaishnavi,
else?
are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you see
No one
anybody
else is
raised
raising their
hands?
hand.
No, but no hands are there. But only thing is, I would like Shamapriya Mataji to show that book one more time on the screen, because last time when you showed, it was
Okay.
in the gallery view. So 1 minute, let me put you on the spotlight, and then you can show.
Okay.
Go ahead, do
Okay.
it now.
Okay, here you go.
Hold it a little higher.
Oh, but do you see it the right way, or do you see
Hold
it
it a
backwards?
little higher.
Higher.
No, too high.
Too high.
There.
There.
Yeah, the divine love trip. Okay.
Anyway, this is.
I also.
They're asking how to get the book.
If you like, write to my husband and we can send you one. Or it's on Krishna.com or Amazon.
Yeah,
But if you write to my husband, then we could send you one if you like.
Touchstone Media also has it.
Touchstone Media. But you know, it came out right when the pandemic came out, so it was really hard to figure out how to distribute it. But I would love to share it with you, because it's a treatise to Prabhupada's mercy. It really, really is a treatise, because I was definitely a love child in the 60s, and he just gave me Krishna. So I had something to a place worthy to put my love and devotion.
Okay.
So if you want a book, just contact my husband and we can send you one.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to also thank Vaishnavi. You did a
Yes,
wonderful job.
Vaishnavi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we hope to see everyone on Saturdays at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Times, and of course, online. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
very
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Bol.
Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.